So welcome back to the vlogs. It's been quite a while since I uploaded one of these. I think it was just I don't think I've done one this semester so far. I think I did a preview for what I thought was gonna happen this semester, and like last semester, I wasn't very consistent with my vlogs, unlike the very first semester. But this one is the opposite. Since last semester I didn't feel like there was much progress between each week, where this one there's a lot of progress and I've just been flat out. So as you may notice, this is probably going to be 3 different parts for each subject, as I think it's going to be just a very long video if I don't do it that way. So I guess a little update on my life. I bought a new tripod, that's why the camera looks a little bit different and it's in a different position. Still trying to play around with the setup, as well as the overall video quality might be improving, and you might see some differences in the overall production of these vlogs if they can continue and I can get the consistency back. That is partly due to one of the courses. We're doing video for that one, so that's exciting. And I've also started a new job, which is consuming a fair bit of time as well, so that's why I've been fairly inconsistent. But hopefully I can get them back to a bit more consistency. Yeah, so I guess that's a bit of an introduction. So this video would be for my Design Studio 4. We skipped 3, or we're going back to 3. We're up to 4. And so for this course I'm doing what's known as witches and wizards. Basically, I'll jump onto the screen here. So we had to come up with our own iteration of a modern day wizard. We can't really use the Harry Potter style wizards with just magic and stuff. We had to think of our own interpretation of it, and so this is the sort of backstory. I should have all these PDFs uploaded to my blog, so you can download them and read through it, which will make a bit more sense, I think. But I'll also just give my opinions and sort of clarifications through these vlogs as well. So my interpretation of the wizard is he's from the future. There's been a shift in government towards sustainable electricity, and there was a lot of corruption is sort of the backstory to the world, and so the main power supply companies have corrupted and everyone's moved away from them and chosen to create energy in their own way. Originally the idea was people live in small communities, except for my wizard, who is an engineer and is well versed in creating electricity and working with those sort of devices. So originally I had him with a nuclear power plant as a way to offset the isolation, as he can't share power between a few groups of different people. But I was told that that was a bit too simple and I had to come up with a different way and more challenging way that the house could solve his issues, instead of just throwing a nuclear power plant in his house as well, which is alright. I do like the idea more, so I'll explain the refinement as I've gone through the weeks a bit later. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that really. Part of him is he does what I call biotetics, I think it is, biotics, which is the enhancement of the human body with electric body parts, which was stemmed from the idea of the nuclear power plant, and that would manipulate his DNA and he'd get growths, cancerous growths that he had to try and cure, as well as through generations he started growing a third arm as well. But I moved away from the cancerous growths in the third arm because we got rid of the nuclear power plant. It didn't really make sense anymore. So next slide. This is my wizard. I didn't give him a name, but I've got the concept sketch and then just the ideas I wrote down displayed around the page, as well as the enhancements highlighted in red around his body. So you've got like a knee walking assistant. You can see, whoops, go back down a page, come on, what's going on, there you go. So he's got tumorous growth, a radiation mutation, which is the third arm, sensory enhancements, so he could hear better, communicate better, see better, whatnot, a heart regulator or health regulator around his heart, and a bionic arm to help sort of offset and balance the difference in the third arm. So, and he'd also need power supply for the robotics and stuff that are attached to his body, which is a battery and a solar panel, which is on him there from the side view. So that's my idea for the wizard. There's obviously some changes in the following weeks, but we also had to show on sketches where I got the inspiration. There's a droid from Star Wars, a microscope so he can see better. This sort of device, which was originally used for communication, was inspired by the Tokyo 2020/2021 Olympics, the cauldron. I thought that was quite cool. And then just like this sort of thing for his movement in the third arm and his leg. And I also added the foot with respect to the droid, and then I don't know if you can see the slight, because he's an engineer and he works on very fine electronics and stuff, he needs this machine, which is the one they use to do surgery on a grape. He's got those around his fingers for those fine movements as well. And then this is my sort of rough concept for the battery pack on the bag. So it's got the wireless charging, solar panel grid, and just the battery in general. And then for his world, these are just some photo montage sort of things of how I envisioned his world. So very dense sort of housing, and this is a huge housing unit that can be used by a few different families with good access to solar, and you can generate like wind as well, which is my thought. And it would be quite crowded with electricity power lines going around everywhere. And then another one, I did the background and then threw in some more sort of futuristic housing developments that could be used and did some manipulations to them. And it's all based around sustainability, so I threw this one here as well, these two here. They have a lot of plants growing on them as well. This one's just a render, and I think this is an actual building. Yeah, this one I drew entirely of just sort of how it might look with solar panels everywhere and a lot of glass, and just designing around sustainability, which is a lot of the focus for mine. There's a sort of a sketch or that's actually a painting that I did. I was playing around with different mediums in ways I could represent the world. So I did some painting, and I thought that this could be a house. Down the bottom could be like the main livable areas, and then the top really dark part up here could be just a roof of solar panels that sort of follow the sun like a sunflower. And then there's a perspective view from just a street. There's less cars and traffic because they're obviously not very sustainable unless you go electric, but you can also just I'm sort of envision that we've moved cars and stuff underground and designed more for bikes and walking, which should be where we're headed. And this is sort of the wizard's house on the left here. You can see the red glow from his experimentation room. This is just very rough. And then you've got things like wind turbines on the roofs that have different styles, different types, and then how the houses are connected through electric cables. And then this is the experimentation room, another drawing I did on the computer. So you can see it's quite dark and gloomy because his practice isn't really regulated, it's not approved by the government, and what he does is quite ethically questionable. So you can see a hand hanging up there, a lot of power cables, and it's quite messy. Got his computer, and yeah, sort of red buttons and glowing, which comes from the previous one. And I think that is all. Pretty happy with how they turned out. This one, probably the happiest with. I like the colours I've got going and my work in the Photoshop drawing with that. Another update for my life. I originally was using a graphics tablet I have had for like 6 years, which is this Wacom Y2S1. It's served me quite well, but I was starting to use it more and more as I go through architecture, and it was somewhat limited, so I actually bought myself a new one, which is this behemoth, the X Pen 12, I think it is. So it's got a screen. It's not plugged in at the moment, but yeah, it's got a screen, a way better pen. It's a lot easier to use, and so that is a lot of fun to play with, and I've used it in work already, which you'll see in a different video. So that was my first week. Second week was we had to go out and pick a site in the Adelaide CBD, and it had to be, we couldn't just use one where there's already a building. It had to be either an empty or unutilized space. So some people picked above thoroughways in alleys and stuff. I had this site sort of in mind from when we first got the task. It's on, I'll get into where it is. Some people might recognize it. It's actually used to be a Bow Repairs, which was demolished. I've got that written on the side if you want a bit more information. And these are some photographs I went and took to sort of document the site. So the top one here is looking south, so we're on the north side of the site, and then this one is on the east side looking west as they start construction. Cool. And then we also had to think about the program of the building, what rooms we would have, and how they would be spaced and where they would go. And we just sort of blocked it out in a fairly simple Rhino model, with a fairly standard sizing for each room. Yeah, so there wasn't too much to do about that. That was just the very first iteration of it on the site. And then, so this is the site, 435 Pulteney Street. I've got the dimensions and stuff, and we also had to think about things like shade, access to water, because it was, at this point, it was still a nuclear power plant, which is the big space at the back here, and then this is sort of living spread away from the nuclear power plant, and then that's the experimentation room, which is close to the power supply, but again, that's changed later on. So yeah, this is obviously trees on the site, a drill hole for water access, and then some streets around. We had to write a 300-word description of the site, which you can also read if you're interested on the PDF. And then this is a larger, I think this is 1 to 500. I put a scale bar there, but I can't quite remember exactly how big it was meant to be. But I obviously, it's a very minimalist map, which was the feedback I received. And I have since added street names and streets, so you can see the curbs and the spacing of the sites. But this is Hurdle Square, which is also, I can't remember, some garden or peace on earth or something like that. And yeah, so we had to, I was looking at very sustainable building, obviously. So good sunlight, wind direction and ventilation, solar access, wind and whatnot, site dimensions, and then some other criteria for the site specifically, which is a maximum building height and minimum building height. And it also has to have a 6-star energy, it's in a 6-star energy rating area, but that's pretty easy to suit in since my guy is coming from a sustainable future. There's the main water, what's it called? Yeah, the water mains, I guess that's it, as that was still required because you need a fair bit of water for nuclear. And then you've got the solar access. This is a heat map of the Adelaide city, and you can see that the site is quite warm. Some feedback from that was I should have put the site the heat map on top as an overlay, which I agree with. I did play around with it and I thought that this one was the best because you can still see where all the buildings are, but again it doesn't really show the heat map because the buildings are blocking it. And then this is wind direction, and same feedback, and they thought that the sample size was quite small and I should have used a rose wind diagram, which I agree with, and I had actually considered it as well. And then just some more photos of the site from around, and that's all for that week. I am aware this is about 17 minutes long, so I'm trying to speed it up a little bit. The next week here we had to use what it's called, we're at the bottom. So again, just updated my man. You can see he's now got 2 robotic arms and missing his 3rd arm growth and some of the other growths. I've kept 1 growth or 2 because of how I made them, the Photoshop file. It was destructive, so I couldn't quite get rid of them to make it perfect again, but that's alright. So again, I've updated my wizard and his use of nuclear power, so that's the description there again. And the site, you can see the streets now: Pulteney Street, Hurdle Square, Johns Lane, Gill Street, and then where it is in Adelaide as well. And then, so from our drawings, from our plans, sections and whatnot, we had to extract bits of information that we could use to then project onto a block to do some cutting, which is really confusing if you don't know or you're not being shown it. So I'll get into that, I think, in the next week's work. So this is the building shadows I got from the site. This is the solar panels I got from a Google Earth image of the site. And then these are trees I took from the photo, all somewhat relevant to my my site and my guy. So we've gone down. So the light axis is obviously pretty prevalent, as he needs a lot of solar energy. So that's what the shadows represent. Solar, it's all very much sun-based now, since wind is a bit iffy and nuclear is gone, which is progression of my feedback, but that's fine. Solar panels, and then the trees are things that could block wind, which is, I still want to somehow incorporate wind into my design. I'm still not up to that, even though this is a couple weeks old. This is 3 weeks old, but the trees could block solar access and wind access, so they were something I had to keep in mind. And then from my drawings in week 1, I took out the things that can generate energy. So we just got a lot of wind turbines here. Yep, and then this is how energy is transported and collected. So these are solar panels that I've extracted from this building here, and then all the power lines above, and then again all the electricity parts that I can visually see in my painting and with the pen marks over the top. And then we collate them in together to make what's called a field, which is used in the next week's work, which is just these. These are the 2 same group of images on the left here, but different scales and playing with different sizes and movements of them. And then there's the other ones. You've got the what was it called? The shadows of the building, solar panels and trees, and again playing with different scales to get different iterations. Alright, now next one, we've got, we're at the bottom again. So again, we've got my man, a little recap, the site, and then I think I miss week, okay, I don't have a week 4. I think I overwrote it, but that's fine. So this, we made a block from the, where was it? This one. So this, we put a block around, we took out all these shapes, so it was just a square, or just a block that filled in like all the areas between those, just a prism. And then what we did, we put some lines down on the block that followed roughly these sort of patterns that we could extract from here. So we might have a diagonal going this way, or we might have something follow down here, down through here, and then something following through all these leaves, and then we put it onto the block and then cut using those lines, almost like cutting a block of cheese or butter, just slicing through it. And then what we got is these hollows, and this is a render of my building on the site. So there's a lot of holes and different parts to it, which then creates this isometric drawing, which looks a bit like spaghetti, but as you can see, you've got the rooms. So you've got experimentation room, bedroom, kitchen, living, mechanical storage area for his extra mechanical parts as he works on them, for getting them ready to put on his body, which he does in his experimentation room, as well as a general electronic storage, as he has to not just generate his own power but also hold his own power as well. And then you've just got his bedroom. Some fairly standard living situations, as he's somewhat of a normal person, but also mixed in with his very abnormal behaviors. So you've got plants, so you've got the what's this one? This is the ground floor, the middle floor, and then the top floor. But again, the feedback I got from this was quite constructive, and I have changed it since, which I'll get to in the last week to come. And then we had to look at the public and private spaces of the rooms, which is just that, fairly obvious. And then the functionality of each room, so which ones pay direct contribution to his features as a wizard, and then which ones are just less functional for him, which is that. And then we had to look at something specific to our person, and obviously mine is light access, which is a very common theme through this. So the yellow is the faces of the building that get sun, and then the blue is the darker parts of the site. Cool. And now if I jump into this one and go there, I'm assuming you can still see that. I hope so. And so again, you've just got my man. Not much has changed from those. Again, this is my site, my building on the site. And then so I've done some revisions. So some of the feedback was he's still portraying himself as a normal person. So the facade should feature the normal parts of the building, normal aspects of the building, which is his bedroom, living area, kitchen, bathroom. And then drawn back from that should be the experimentation room, so you can't really see it from the street. And obviously it's on the square and Pulteney Street, two fairly popular areas. Pulteney Street is very popular and the main thoroughway around the site. So I want to take the experimentation room away from that facade, and so I've hidden it at the back, the southwest corner. This is a southwest isometric drawing, and then having the other stuff on the other side. So again, you've got the bathroom in this area. Some of the other feedback was, if I go here, there's a bit of a weird floor here, and there's not enough room for a person to actually stand up in. So I had to change that. I just brought the floor down, made it flat. There's that, and so now we have a fairly large bathroom, a huge living area, as he still likes to entertain, and he does these enhancements on other people, not just himself. So he does want to sort of have room for his guests, a kitchen, fairly standard, and a bedroom tucked away there on the east side. And then you've got some stairs up into the mechanical storage room, which is a still somewhat normal feature for a wizard of his kind, and that isn't questionable, so that's the first room they can access. I could have done it in the electronic storage room, which is more prevalent and more or less ethically questionable, but it is a fairly small room and would be a lot of that space would have to be taken up by batteries, and then after that you have access through to the experimentation room. Cool. And I've changed it into two floors essentially, the ground floor with the main living areas, and then the top floor, the secluded stuff that is questionable. Again, public private, fairly simple functionality. All the functional stuff is at the top, less functional stuff on the ground floor. And then I have to update this one. Yeah, that's still the same one as the week before. And then what we have to add this week is the movement. So where do you access the building from? I'm choosing to do it from the southwest side and have the entrance in that south sort of breezeway. And then you can access, obviously, come around the side here to the bathroom, go through the kitchen and to the bedroom, or you can come up the stairs, which is down here, and then up again into the mechanical storage room, and then access through to the different parts of the experimentation room and battery room. Cool, and I think that is it. Some other little factors around it, yeah. So the pedestrians can walk through this laneway still, and then along the north side of the building, as well as along Pulteney Street. And then this small orange arrow down the bottom is the vehicle access for where the wizard would park if he was driving, or if some of the surrounding buildings still needed car parking, they can go there. Cool, and I think I'm just going to leave that there. The recorder is saying 27 minutes, so this is quite a long video. And yes, so I don't know how to stop this recording. There it is. Cool. Alright, so thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.